Nice to see you.
You too, man. Nice to meet you finally.
Oh, is it?
Oh, yeah. But I just want
to. I'm not doubting your sincerity. It's just kind of like, hang on, have we? Because I thought we hadn't met before, and you're like, no, we did. It's like,
we'll get to that. So for anybody that does not know, bro, and I don't know what's going on with them. Who are you, my man?
Who am I? I'm a filmmaker and a father and a storyteller and a lover of life.
Yeah, I like that. That's dope. Anyway,
in the nutshell, yeah.
Chris Graham, I just want to say a massive thank you for coming on, bro. I'll get straight into it. All right. One day I was having breakfast, okay, at a little breakfast place in Kingsland, and you came in. You came in, mate. You were by yourself. I think I was waiting for somebody. You were waiting for someone, and I went over to you. This would have been a good 5 years ago, mate. And I walked over to you and I said, Chris. And you looked like, holy shit, like he knows who I am. Because, and I said, Chris, mate, I love your work. And then you said, man, come on, man, let's have a seat. And then we had a little bit of a conversation. This was at, man.
I vaguely remember this now, actually. Was it Shaky Isles?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I remember now. Yeah, it's coming back to me. I had a feeling that if you were like, because like I said, it was like if it was in a nightclub, I may not remember. Although those days have gone. But now, I think it was at that cafe. I remember this.
And then you said, man, come and have a seat. And I was like, cool, man. And we sat down. We chopped it up for like, man, it would have been like 10 minutes and just around your history. And you asked what I do. And at that time, I was in sport. And you were like, hey, man, you do this, da-da-da-da. And it was just like, holy shit. And then your guy, whoever you were having breakfast was came. My one came. And then that was it. Yeah, that's my story.
That's cool, man.
And here we are, connected straight back up.
I know. And look at this, you've got your own show, and I'm honored to be here, and worlds return together.
Dude, I had to show, I had to show my missus. You sent me a voice message, and you said one thing. You go, like I've seen this, and I'm a fan, mate. And I thought, wow, Chris Graham is a fan of me. It's crazy.
No, it's good. Oh, it's reciprocal, It's just it's good to see what other people are doing, and once I listened to some of your podcasts, watched some of your Twitch stuff, it was just like, this is great. You're onto something. It's exciting. It's early days for you, bro.
It is. I know, and it's scary, but it's exciting as well.
Yeah, it's like that interview you did with JC was amazing, John Campbell, and I sent you may or may not have picked up on this. I sensed his nervousness. You were like the new school coming through. He's like, where's this guy going to be in 10 years? He's going to be taking my job. He's like nipping at his heels.
There's a bit of a there's a line in there that I say to him. I was like, this is my, because he was on some radioactive. He was on.
Yeah, and that's right, back in the day.
And I said, this is my radioactive, John. This is where I'm reaching the people. And he was like, shit, yeah, no, actually, you've got a good point there, Tim. And I was like, yeah, boy. He's the man.
Was like, I was down. I'm from Welly as well, and I listened to a lot of Active, and he was talking about, I think, the Wednesday Night Jam and the Uncut Funk show, like really early, late 80s era. That's my old school era. And but he was like a little bit older than me. And so I was listening to the hip hop show on Wednesday night with like Reese B and Jazz, like Jason Ford, some of the early guys. But he was doing the alternative rugby commentary, like before it was a thing. Yeah. And I kind of wish I listened to it, or I don't know if they archived it or if you could play it back, but it's basically like them doing the other commentary, but just talking shit and swearing and saying what everybody's thinking, but commentators don't usually say. So it's a cool concept.
I tried looking for the alternate. I was out, man. I was going for it, but I couldn't find anything.
Right.
It was rough. Yeah.
Yeah. It might be on like 1/4-inch tape in the radioactive vault, like Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's like this warehouse of like old stuff.
All right, man. I've got a question that we're going to put to the chat. Fish and chips. What's your go-to when you go fish and chips, mate? You're getting a $10 pack. We need three. Got three of them.
Oh my god, fish and chips. Well, I'm a dad of 3 kids, so when we do fish and chip nights, it's where it's actually, for me, it's a fish burger. Like I've kind of, like I want something bigger than just a piece of fish.
Yep.
And the kids love spring rolls, if depending on which place it is and how reliable it is.
Yep.
But when it's in season, I'll always go for a couple of deep fried oysters. I love my oysters.
Okay.
But yeah, just no particular spot, just always trying out, getting recommendations from people and trying out different places.
Have you ever had a sea dog?
Nah.
It's like a hot dog with a crab stick. What about crab sticks, man? You a fan of the crab stick?
Not a fan of crab sticks, no, to be honest. Just because it's shirimi or whatever it's called, it's kind of.
Really.
I love crab. Like crab's probably my favorite kaimoana. Like when I can get it or afford it, or whether it's if I'm overseas and it's Australia has amazing crab. Some of the best crab I've ever had is Thailand, but not crab sticks. No.
All right, we got to put that to the test. Actually, we've got crab sticks, we've got spring rolls, and we've got a fish burger. Let's see who's keen in the chat. 1, 2, or 3 in the chat, fams. If you're good to go. All right, let's get into this, eh? So Wellington is where you're up, right? You got brought up in Wellington, but where did Bangkok and Ottawa come from?
Oh my God, good question. I had a very, and I know privilege now has a different term because it sounds like white privilege, which I'm well aware of, but I had a very privileged, I'm incredibly grateful for my childhood, as much as I complained about it at the time as a kid. But basically the first half of my dad's career, he was working for Foreign Affairs and he was a diplomat. So I was born in Wellington, and basically he'd have like 3 years in Wellington and then get a posting overseas. So we moved to Ottawa when I was like 2, 3, 4 years old. Wow. So I've got very early memories of snow and ice skating on the canal and, kindergarten years, whatever, but hardly any memories. Back in Wellington for 3 years and then to Bangkok for 3 years, which was like, early 80s, mind blown. And I was like 8, 9, 10 years old, and that's, and as a, basically middle-class suburban kid from Wellington, it's like suddenly being in the streets of Thailand where there's lepers like begging in the streets and prostitutes hanging out of doorways and, like in the markets, they got like, dog fighting and cock fighting as in roosters, and monks walking around begging for food. Like it was just a total cultural contrast that, hit my brother and I super hard, and we hated it for the first few months. And then we gradually grew to love it. And we started picking up the language by playing soccer with the Thai kids in the street and just loving it. And by the time the 3 years was up and we had to move back to Wellington, we were complaining and crying all over again like we didn't want to go. It was just so great. Yeah.
Was it Kadala that you lived in?
Yeah, Karori in my primary school years, and then Kandala area for high school. I went to Onslow College, which is kind of like the Western Springs down in Welly.
Oh, yo. Because dad was a diplomat, correct? But was mum was a social worker, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Check out your research, bro. It's true what they say.
It is. So that was a bit of a, because social work, right? You need to be part of the community. Did mum go as well over to Ottawa and Bangkok, or did she stay back in Welly?
Yeah, no, she came. We went everywhere as a family, throughout our teenage years at least. But she studied social work at Vic and started in that world, and then kind of adapted to wherever we went. So when we were in Thailand, she was working for UNHCR, so helping refugees on the border with the Burmese and Cambodian misplaced kids that had through war had been displaced from their parents and stuff like that. So she did amazing work, and then came back to Wellington and went back to social work and stuff, and then was kind of head of the child and family clinic in Lower Hutt for most of the 80s when we came back. And then my dad's last posting was to Geneva. And at that stage, they were kind of borderline, going to separate anyways, just after a long time together and different career interests and everything else. And so my dad went to Geneva on his own, and my brother and I stayed. And it was our late high school years, like 16, 17 years old. So and I, as much as I wanted to be with my dad, I didn't really want to move to Geneva and learn French and go to high school and be the odd kid out and, do it all over again, because I'd done that most of my childhood, and I was really involved in, all kinds of high school interests, but, graffiti art and skateboarding, and just had close friends. I just didn't want to uproot it all and go, fresh slate all over again.
Especially at that time of your life, the late, mid to late high school years are like, you got to be in it. You got to be in the circles. You got to have you have your friends, and that's who you are. You grow as a person.
It's really defining age. When I was coming of age, it was kind of like really really crucial. But in saying that, as I said before, it's like I just feel really grateful now, looking back at it, for as much as it was ups and downs and kind of like, I don't want to go, I don't want to leave, I don't want my friends, and my girlfriend at the time, or whatever it was that was felt emotional in my childhood. It's like, I look back at it and it's absolutely, having that upbringing has completely shaped how I see the world, as well as really it's subconsciously come through in a lot of my work. It's probably, besides coming through in hip hop, it's like I'm really culturally fascinated by Maori culture and Samoan culture and really any culture, because as a European mashup, I don't have a whole lot of culture to grasp onto myself, but yet I was raised in different cultures, so I grew a fascination and appreciation for how other people live.
Yeah, that's crazy. So where you're staying, is that kind of like, because I'm not from Wellington, I'm South Auckland born and bred, but like is it kind of like the middle of, say, your Lower Hutt and your, like, that was kind of like the middle going towards it, or is it how does it work?
They're kind of like Johnsonville, Kandala are kind of like the eastern suburbs, so out of central, but still, Johnsonville is pretty multicultural and rough, whereas Kandala was more middle class and white, so it was kind of like the two suburbs merging. Yeah. And then Onslow was in the middle. Across the street was Raroa Intermediate, where I went, and like Taika was a couple of years below me at Onslow. And when he moved from the East Coast down to Welly, he was there, and a huge amount. I mean, I guess probably a bit like Western Springs or maybe Wellington High. They're just these co-ed, artistic kind of based schools where a lot of artists come out of it. It was a great school.
Well, Onslow did have a lot of artists coming out of it. There was yourself, there was Taika, there was Andrew Mulligan. Was he at school with you?
No, he might have been a few years above me. But two of the guys, I think two guys from Shehad came through Onslow, and the other two were at Wellington High, and they somehow met through rock or Wellington music scene, even in high school years, and formed Shehad. Heaps of people come through.
But I mean, just Taika himself, like that brings, if we had a draft of people that are creative in New Zealand, he'd be number one, man,
Yeah, absolutely. No, he's an incredible, multi-talented artist on all levels.
Yeah, and but yeah, it's really strange that like there's like a hotbed of these really creative people coming out of Wellington, and he's one of them, obviously, and Ride of the Conchords another one, and then there's yourself. There's like this whole, and then you come up to Auckland and all the little bougie, little poncy rugby players coming out of South Auckland. They go to the big school, go to King's College or St. Kentigern's. Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh man. So yeah, Onslow. Right. Okay. So I'm gonna do this little thing with you. There's smell, taste, and vision, right? Or touch. We'll go touch. There's four your senses. Describe to me each sense. What happened to you the first time that you saw Star Wars?
Oh my God.
What's the smell? What can you remember coming out of the movies? Did you watch it at the movies?
No. Star Wars came out as it was a Tuesday night documentary. So at the time, TV1 was playing a Tuesday night documentary. Every Tuesday was a Tuesday night documentary. Yeah. And
what can you remember, man? What's the first things that come to mind when you think about
Star Wars? When you think smell, I just immediately smelled spray paint. But that didn't come from the documentary. That's just nostalgia for...
Yep, that's fine. Keep going.
But absolutely, aerosol, like just so close to my face, and sound. It was just those early mid '80s soundtrack in that documentary. Early beats. I don't even know half the artists. Ramel Z and Cool Herc and or all the early DJs and grandmasters back then. But yeah, the soundtrack's incredible. I mean, it's I think for the young viewers and new school heads, it's hard to imagine, the just technology at that time. Like basically we had VHS players, and so we would record it. Like there was ads for the fact that documentary was coming up, and then the hip hop scene got excited and recorded it. And then you just watch it back on VHS, but you couldn't play it off your phone or share it or edit pieces of it. You just reviewed it over and over, and it became like a Bible. So I mean, when Star Wars dropped, it was like New Zealand, urban and suburban New Zealand was pretty naked, and literally the Wednesday, the day after Star Wars, the Tuesday night documentary came out, there was just, you know, graph tags all over and terrible, average, inexperienced graph tags everywhere, you know?
So you know Spider-Man, right? Everyone's got that origin stories where the you know, the spider bites him, the radioactive spider turns into Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Was Tuesday night the birth of science, my brother?
Yeah, it was. It was actually like, it was that documentary was, yeah, it was absolutely it was probably the spider bite of not only graffiti and hip hop, but actually the culmination of worlds, but visual arts as well. Like, younger than that, I saw Star Wars at the Embassy Movie Theatre, and I wanted to become a filmmaker. You know, I didn't want to be a fireman or a cop anymore, like young boy syndrome. I was like, I want to make movies. I just didn't know how you go about doing that. But it was basically graffiti art became, because I didn't have a like a video camera or anything as a teenager. It's like graffiti art became that visual ability, like me being able to take my drawing and then suddenly turn it into bigger murals and then do it on big scales on walls. And then, of course, it was competitive and all the beautiful, you know, value system of hip hop, like the competition, the battles, you want the fame, you want to make your mark, but you're still anonymous, but people are talking about you, you know, like all the appeal of being a graph writer.
Because science was your hit up, eh?
Yeah, it was. It was. I mean, my really early names were like, I was Pharaoh around Wellington. So,
Ooh.
but it was Fero.
Okay.
Pharaoh, yep. And so I wrote that a lot. I formed a crew in high school with a couple of guys, Jake and Ned Walker, and we became the Deaf Unit.
Oh, okay.
So back then, and this is way before G Unit, nobody was calling themselves Unit. So I was like, oh yeah, that was the early days. You know, everything was posse, upper posse, this posse, that posse.
That's right.
So it was like, you know, different eras of hip hop have, you know, gravitate towards different terms.
Because the reason I know that is because he's a little bit. Did you hit up on their brother's set? Did you hit up that fence science?
Yeah, I did.
I thought so.
Well,
I saw it and I was like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah. That was both personal, you know, personal tag, but I guess train spotters for old friends of mine and people that knew it if they saw it. So I'm often, you know, often doing that where I can in my work, I guess.
So how did the story go when you told your mum you're going to go live over in New York City, man?
Yeah, well, she was supportive and cool about it, but also naturally worried. It was like I had a total safety net. Basically, my parents split up, and my dad left Foreign Affairs and all of his international postings, but he took a job at a non-profit organization in New York. And at that stage, and so my mum was back in Wellington working at the Child and Family Clinic, and at that time, like, I wanted to be a filmmaker, but the only film course in New Zealand was down in Christchurch at Ilam, and it was like one teacher, one Bolex camera, like really old school 16mm camera, and I just kind of knew that my growth and everything would be limited. Whereas at the time, my dad had lived in Geneva prior to that, like I was saying earlier, so I hadn't lived with him for like 3 years. I'd seen him like 3 times a year during holidays, but not actually lived with him. And he was in New York, and he's like, why don't you apply to film school here? So I basically took the high school Onslow College VHS camera, went off, made a short film, and used that 10-minute short film to apply to NYU and the School of Visual Arts, and I got accepted to both. And then it was like game on, and I was both excited and terrified. I was like moving to New York at 18 years old, and it was like the mecca of hip hop and the mecca of film, and I was diving in the deep end, you know?
What did it like? I mean, I've been to New York twice. Yeah. And I always remember the first time I went there. When you come, I came on a bus, right? Because we were traveling from wherever, and you come underneath the bridge, and then all of a sudden, it's just like skyscrapers and just busy people. I mean, you would have gone in the 90, I'm guessing like 92, 93?
Yeah, no, actually 90. It was like February 90. So it was really, it was the very beginning of the 90s, which of course was the golden era of hip hop for most of us old school heads.
Give us, I know you've probably got a hip hop story that you're just like waiting to tell us around 1990 New York City.
Yeah.
Is there anything that like you're like the first thing that you tell people about? What's the first story?
Yeah, when I think about that era, like when I first got there, the other thing is that the American school year kind of starts in July and wraps around. So our year starts in February or whatever, the educational year. So I but I finished high school and then went straight to the States and straight to New York. And then I started halfway through their first year of school, if that makes sense. And I had to catch up for the first half of the year during summer holidays and do, extra credits. Anyways, when I got there, basically everybody was kind of in cliques and people had friends and I didn't know anybody. And I was starting halfway through the year and I was like 18 years old, like bum fluff on my face, Kiwi accent, didn't know anyone. And in the first month, there was a gig at Studio 54, which became the Roxy in Midtown in Manhattan. And it was, so in February 90, it was Tribe Called Quest, before they dropped People's Instinctive Travels, their first album, and Jungle Brothers and Third Base. I don't know, do you know Third Base?
No, not really. Those other ones I do, though.
Anyways, Third Base was like the first white, actually not the first, because Beastie Boys were the first. They were the first kind of white rap group out of Queens, at least, and they, Beastie Boys started as a punk rock band, and then Rick Rubin and Run's brother Russell Simmons basically primed them to be hip hop. Anyways, so Third Base, so they were all playing. So I went to this gig, but I asked I just started at school, didn't know anybody, asked a few people in class, like, hey, I'm going to go to the thing on Friday night. Do you want to come? And I was like looking for company. Nobody was interested. Didn't have any friends. I'm like, fuck it, I'm going on my own. Went to the gig. And before that started, and although I had heard of Tribe Called Quest, I hadn't like put anything out. And at the beginning, it was kind of like, opening act, and P. Diddy comes out on stage and he's like, okay, everybody, I got a new artist. His name is Biggie Smalls. Everybody, put your hands together for Biggie Smalls.
Damn.
And, seriously. And nobody knew who Biggie was. He was like the new artist. And everybody that was there in the audience was there. They were all like about tribe vibes. So in that era, it was like, Leaders of the New School, Jungle Brothers, Tribe Called Quest, Moni Love, few. Who am I not thinking of? Jungle Brothers, Tribe, and Queen Latifah. Anyways, it was all this, like, that was the flavor at the time. And then Biggie came out and started doing his Brooklyn hardcore raps, and like literally got booed off stage. Like people were throwing stuff at him, they were talking over him because nobody knew who Biggie was. And then he honestly, he got like 3 songs in and he was like, fuck all y'all, and like dropped the mic on the stage and stormed off, like upset as, that's the one time I saw Biggie.
Man, it's crazy.
Yeah. So that was when I arrived. I was like 18, arrived in New York, and no friends, went to the gig on my own.
Bro, that's ballsy, man.
It was cool. I had to, right?
Yeah, but shit, like, fuck. Damn, bro, that's really, I mean, because I don't know what it was like, but I mean, wasn't like the 90s when the like crack epidemic was happening and shit like that?
Yeah, it was just a tail end of that, because that was like really full on in the late 80s. And Times Square was still rough as, like, it's like it was scary walking through Times Square back then, because everybody was selling drugs and it was just, and I was young, I got Wellington friends come and visited me that would tell stories about, getting approached in Times Square and getting scared off. Anyways, it was a different time, but yeah, it was dodgy. And I mean, even the hip hop gigs back then, it was like, I was there on my own, but it was like, for the most part, a lot, white people were the minority at that time. It wasn't a multicultural genre,
Because like, I know that there was, in terms of heading up and tagging, did you were part of that scene as well? The graph scene in
New York?
Yeah.
I was painting and like a little on my own, but I was making, I tried to make a couple of documentaries. So as film school projects, I followed around a lot of, graph writers and that was exciting. And I'd tag up with them, but I was basically running around with a camera with them at night and, often getting chased by cops and exciting stuff, which made for great footage. In fact, one time, thinking about it, although it wasn't a graph video, but
is this the taxi story you're going to hit us with? When the cops jumped out of the taxi with the guns?
Yeah, how do you know about that?
Because, brother, I do my research. But anyway, is this a true story? So there's, tell me if I'm correct, right?
I'm just a bit shocked because I haven't told that story to many people. I don't think I've told it. I can't remember telling it to the media, so I'm amazed that you've dug it up.
So, hey, I might be wrong, though. All right?
Yeah.
Some dudes are running. You were filming them for your whatever you're doing. And some undercover cops jumped out of a taxi and were just like pointing guns at you and put you up against the wall. Is that true?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it was, you know what? It all actually, a lot of that came back to me with the Black Lives Matter movement that's come up, and just that whole treatment and looking at all that stuff, like white privilege versus in this country brown privilege and black privilege overseas. And it's like I'm marching with my kids down Queen Street a couple of months ago, but it actually made me think, and it's just kind of like, you know, like shit, that was my experience of it. And I experienced both the fear of it, but also like just the racial bias. The two guys that I was filming, were black, and it was like a scene in a script we had written, and one was chasing the other, and they had a bag, and it was like he was trying to get what was in the bag without getting into the storyline. But what happened was I was running behind them with the camera, and another guy was running with me with a light, friend of mine from film school, and we basically ran around the corner, and that taxi cab, so a yellow taxi cab, drove off the road up onto the footpath at us like it was going to hit us, screeched to a halt. 4 huge white guys got out with jackets and grabbed us. And here's the bias. They pinned the black guys down on the ground and like literally had their knees on their backs. And they slammed me up against the wall and said, "What are you doing? What's in the bag? What's in the bag?" So it was like they're questioning the white guys straight away. Yeah. And I was like, "Nothing, clothing." It's like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "We're making a student film." He's like, "Have you got any idea?" I'm like, "Yes, let me just reach for it slowly." But like literally the cop had a gun on the back of my head. They had guns out on the other 2 guys on the ground, and then they opened the bag. Like I showed them my student ID. They opened the bag. They saw it was filled with clothing, and then they were like, "Oh, okay, guys. Well, we heard there was a robbery in the area, and we had to check it out." It was like no apology. They just like literally justified why they were looking in the bag, what they were looking for, and they just climbed back into the cab and drove off like undercover cops in a cab, and we were just left shaken. And the black guys got up and they were just like, "Oh, fucking pigs." And they were just pissed off, but they had been there before. Yeah. But I was just like shaking like it was a near-death experience, you know, because I had a gun on me and I thought that was it, you know.
Yeah. Wow, man.
Crazy. Yeah. So and I didn't tell my mum that story until I moved back to New Zealand. Like once I was living in New Zealand and I was just kind of like, okay, now I'll share the story with you because I didn't want her to worry about me, but, you know, yeah.
And Dad thought that was character building. Is that correct?
Everything is character building. It's like the classic disclaimer for growth.
You broke your leg. It's character building. You'll be all right. Put some Vicks on it. You'll be fine.
Yeah. You've been fired, character building. Yeah.
So, what are some of the things you picked up in film school in New York City, man?
Oh, it was just it was an awesome time. I mean, I guess to answer your question, it's like it's a 4-year program, and the first 3 years they basically teach you everything. So you learn all about lighting, about sound, about editing, screenwriting, cinematography. You don't really compose the music, but you study music. You study film history, like you study film theory. So you learn everything. And then, the first 2 years, and then in the 3rd year you specialize. So some students go, "Oh, I want to be a screenwriter, that's me." And others go, "I want to be a cinematographer," and they gravitate towards camera and lighting. And everybody kind of splits up, and then you study more specialized subjects within that. And most kids want to be directors, you know, because it seems glamorous, even if you don't really know how hard and challenging it is, or whether you've got the personality type to fit it. And so I studied directing, and then specialized in that in the 3rd year, and then in your 4th year you make a thesis film basically, and you make like a 20-minute or half-hour film as your thesis to prove what you can do, and that's what you get essentially judged on for your degree.
So you were in New York from 1990 to 94, is that correct, or 95?
I actually stayed longer. Even after I graduated school, there was just a ton of opportunities, and I had an American girlfriend at the time, and I just loved New York, and I just stayed. So my plan was to go for 4 years and move home, but I actually stayed until 97. So I was in New York for 7 years.
Man, because that would have been so much that happened during then. Like you had like Biggie died in 96.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Man,
that's right.
Wu-Tang was out in 93.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you would have seen that whole shit. You would have seen the whole East Coast, West Coast thing.
Yeah, all of that went down.
Man.
I went to so many gigs. And it's New York, you know, and I mean, I lived in LA for a year after that, but like both cities, it's just inevitable. Like the amount of people, I saw KRS-One in the street, you know, and I'm like, "Yo, Chris," and he like looks at me and I'm like, "Big fan, brother," you know, like I didn't even know what to say. I was just saying hello, you know, and he's like, "All right, man, peace," you know. So you just see people everywhere, you know.
Because that's the thing with New York, everyone just walks everywhere or catches the subway.
Yeah, I mean, and I used to love just fucking with people, like kind of, like I remember, like I was working after film school, I was working as a runner, and I was like, delivering, film stuff and working on set, but I was at low level, basically like PA, production assistant. And I remember coming out of a building, and like Mike Myers was walking into the building the moment I'm walking out, and I like opened the door. But the way I used to like fucking with people is I never asked him for an autograph. I'd just be like, "Hey, what's up, Mike?"
Yeah.
And he'd be like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" And I'm like, "I'm good, man. How's it going? How was your weekend?" And he's like, "Good." And you could see their mind spinning, like, "How do I know this guy? How do I know this guy? Is he like the son of a movie executive?" And it's like head spinning through. And I'm like, "All right, man. Have a good day. Nice to see you." Just leave them wondering if they know you or not,
Because the New York Knicks are my team. That's my and the night that era there was when I got into the Knicks. And the only reason I got into the Knicks was because of hip hop. Because the hip hop dudes are all into it, and I love East Coast hip hop. That was my come up, like all of that. KRS-One, Beastie Boys, all the Def Jam stuff was all me coming up. So that's absolutely crazy. Even the comedy scene would have been like booming at that time.
Yeah. I went to a lot of live comedy in the Village and stuff. It was great, and jazz clubs and just everything. It was like, you go into Central Park, and it was like, like literally that music video for Saturdays by De La Soul with everybody roller skating and skateboarding and dancing in the park. That all happens, And the same with b-ball as well. Like I wasn't a massive. I mean, I shoot hoops for fun, but I'm never a big b-ball head. But it's like, West 4th Street courts, you'd go there and you'd watch street ball, and it was just so entertaining. You just hang on the chicken wire fence and just like watch these guys, shoot hoops and talk shit with each other and roast each other. And, it was great.
The park and everything like that.
There's so much energy in that city. You get on a subway car and there's like energy in the car. Like it's, like after I lived in Manhattan for years, but then when I moved out to Brooklyn to Park Slope and then Williamsburg, it's almost like once I went out to Brooklyn, even though you'd think Brooklyn is busy and crazy, it's still actually quieter and slower than Manhattan. It doesn't have the same intensity, And I used to get back to Brooklyn and just exhale and chill, and then get back on the train, go back into Manhattan, and you just feel the intensity in the street all over again.
It's so true. Like
it's magical.
Yeah. Like I've been to both, and it is a vibe, eh? You just feel like everything's just so busy, and there's something always happening. It's a great city.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, sometimes I look back at it and I don't know whether it's just the nature and the cycle of life of getting older. But I feel like my level of inspiration in New York was just, constantly fueled. Like I'd have a notebook in my pocket at all times, and I'd just be sitting on the subway and I'd just be like, have this idea, see something or feel something, or like there's just this electricity in the air, and it's infectious. And it just, I was always writing down ideas. I'd have notebooks and notebooks of ideas of film stuff I wanted to do, or camera movements, or ideas for music videos, or whatever it was, always noting them down. And maybe it's just being a parent of 3 kids, but it's like, I'm in my 40s. I'm deliberately trying to feed my inspiration, because I don't have that the way I did in my 20s. And I'm just differentiating whether that was New York or just age,
That's, man, a very introspective way of thinking about things, right?
Yeah.
Hey, was another radioactive spider bite for your next chapter was old Frankie Cutlass when he gave you that hook?
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, that was my teenage dream come true. That was amazing. Yeah, so
how did that come?
Well, basically, one of my closest friends over there, Isidro Urquia, who was a cinematographer. He was a student at school with me. He's a Dominican guy. I'm still really, really close with him. Talk to him, a few times a year with his family. He's still up in Spanish Harlem. He was the cinematographer at school. He shot my student films. We were really tight friends. He basically paired up with Hype Williams, who eventually became my hero. So for those that don't know, Hype Williams was like the hip hop music video director of the 90s, like just made all the classics. Like chances are your favorite 90s hip hop videos were directed by him. So Izzy, short for Isidro, started shooting some of his videos, and so he was kind of dabbling on the edge of the music video scene. And I remember one day I met up with him for beers, and we're drinking like Red Stripes in the Village. And I'm like, "Oh, bro, you're shooting today. How was it?" He's like, "It was crazy, man." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Oh, we did this song called Flavor in Your Ear."
Damn.
And it was like Busta Rhymes and Biggie and LL and you know, like Craig Mack, and you know, like it's just, and I was just like, you just shot all those guys? He's like, yeah, and it was just a white psych, and eventually this became the inspiration for me for Not Many. You know, it was like performance video, white psych, just let the guys do their thing, and so they, yeah, it was like he shot that video, and then he was basically kind of on the edge of some of the record labels, and then Frankie Cutlass was looking for a treatment, and then Izzy recommended me. So I was basically blank slate. I had not made a single music video. And he was like, oh, you know, you should get my friend Chris to pitch for it. He's all into hip hop and this and that. And then the video commissioner at Relativity Records and Frankie Cutlass were like, okay, well, he can pitch for it against other directors. And I basically had to, this is what you do in music video land. You write a treatment, like you write your vision and your idea for that song, and then you submit it and they choose. I mean, this is still kind of happens in New Zealand sometimes competitively, and this is how it works in the commercial game for me. If I'm doing a TV commercial, I have to basically write a treatment and compete or battle with other directors and then see if you get chosen or not. So we did that. I pitched this idea of a split screen thing for the Frankie Cutlass video, which had Redman and June Lover, who was a guy out of Staten Island and kind of the periphery of the Wu-Tang camp, and then and Sadat X, and I was a massive Brand Nubian fan, so I'm like, oh man, Sadat X. But I basically wrote the treatment, and we got picked, and so that was my debut Virgin music video was in New York with these big names, and it was like my teenage dream come true, because it was film and music videos and hip hop all in one, and my first one was like a New York hip hop video.
Oh man! Hey, we just we closed that poll when the Fishburger won, bro. So congratulations.
Oh, there you go.
But I've got another one. We've got our favorite 90s East Coast rap group, man. I got Tribe, I got Wu, I got Beastie Boys, and I got Public Enemy, bro. Who would you go with?
Oh, that's a tough one, because Public Enemy were one of my main introductions into rap. You know, like Don't Believe the Hype, My Uzi Weighs a Ton. The whole first album is phenomenal. All their albums are phenomenal, but if I treated it like a desert island band, like if I was on a desert island and I could only listen to one of those bands and all of their albums, like their discography, but that's all I could listen to, I'd pick Tribe.
Yeah, you seem like a Tribe kind of a
dude. yeah.
I'm a Wu guy. I love the Wu-Tang.
Fair enough.
That was I had a neighbor, and he had turntables. He had a mixer and two turntables. And he would just play it, and I could hear it from his garage. And then, you know, little by little, I'd come over and watch, and then he'd scratch it up, and I'd just sit there and just listen to it. And then he taped it on tape for me, the 36 chambers, and that was me, bro. I never left my cassette player.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great album, and don't get me wrong, I love the Wu as well. But if I had to pick, it would still be Tribe. Maybe it's just musical, you know. It's like their jazz, their samples, their, you know, just the contrast. I mean, you know, Wu MCs are hugely contrasted too, but even in Tribe, it's like between Q-Tip and Fife. It's just me.
I think it was two sides of the coin. Like you had the karate, the kung fu films with the Wu, and then you had this vibey kind of jazz flow with Tribe, and it was just, man, it was the shit, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember being in a skate shop, actually, like, you know, in Chinatown, and hearing Can I Kick It, hearing the bass line, the Lou Reed bass line, and hearing Can I Kick It in the shop, and then hearing the raps and the beat drop after the bass line, and just going up to the guy in the store and being like, who's this playing? And they were like, oh, it's this new band called Tribe Called Quest. I was like, whoa, so I could get that at Tower Records? He's like, oh, no, it's not out yet. This is a demo, because he's a friend of mine. And I was like, really? And he's like, you want a copy? I'm like, serious? And he's like, because we're in Chinatown. He's like, go get a cassette tape. And it was just the age of bootlegging. So I just went down the street, $2, cassette tape, brought it back. He put it in his double tape deck, made me a dub, gave it to me. And I had like People's Instinctive Travels, that first album, like a few months. And then when I went to that gig that I was telling you before, like I actually knew the songs, even though it was one of their first gigs.
Yeah, that bass line is, I don't think there's anything that rivals that bass line.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Doom, doom, and you're just like, oh, anytime you just hear like a miniature second of it, you're like, yeah, I know what's coming. I know what's coming.
Yeah, look at Wu-Tang climbing up your pole there.
I know, man. Look at that.
Yeah.
What's 5? We're getting there. You ever seen them live, the Wu?
Yeah, I've seen them at a festival. I'm trying to think whether it was London, actually. It was like just one of those festivals where there was just tons of artists, and it wasn't all of them. I'm trying to think who wasn't there, but yeah, I saw them. They were great.
Yo.
Amazing.
Bro, were you there when the Big L was starting off? Fuck.
Yeah, yeah.
Bro.
And I was a bit. To be honest with you, I was a bit late on him, but that was the 90s. Yeah, amazing.
Sorry, man, I could talk all day about this shit. Fuck.
I remember getting on the subway train and like seeing a guy like with his headphones on, just bobbing his head, and it was like the MC from Diggable Planets, you know, like. And they had albums out, but he was still riding the train, you know, like that's what I mean. They're just those real people, even though they're famous and they're heroes, they're in the streets, they're everywhere, you know.
And so anyway, what made you want to come back to New Zealand then?
Well, just to make New Zealand films and do New Zealand work. I mean, it was home. Like in some ways part of my dream is to like, you know, still make stuff in the States and go back to the States at some time. But at the moment I'm in family mode, and, you know, it's like I've got my 3 kids here. But it was always like, I'm going to go to New York, I'm going to get my degree, I'm going to do film school, and then I'm going to move back and start making films. And so, you know, I naively thought I'd do that when I graduated 4 years later, but then just so many opportunities came up when I finished my student film, and it all just opened up, and I just stayed. And like I said, I had a girlfriend at the time, and I just stayed, you know, like it's just such a big, beautiful machine of opportunities. I think no matter what industry you're in, you just go there and back yourself. And it's unlike in New Zealand where you get one chance at this or that, or the, you know, the pool is smaller. Over there, it's just so big. There's just so many opportunities, you know, like I was just going from one thing to the next. It was like that thing on the horizon just kept me, and being in a relationship just kind of kept me longer. But after a while, and actually it was after a year in LA, I was just like, all right, I'm done. I'm cooked. I want to go back to Welly.
Cool. And then coming back to Welly, did you have an idea what you're going to be doing with all these new skills you had?
Well, I mean, I knew I wanted to work in film and direct, ideally, but it's, you know, you when you're starting out, it's hard to sell yourself if you've only got a certain amount of stuff to share or you know, showcase. But I just wanted to come back and make films, and so I basically came back. I went to all the companies in town with a VHS showreel of all the music video and all my short film stuff, everything I'd done, and I used that to basically pitch myself. And I ended up getting a job in a company in Wellington at Thorndon Quay called 2D Films, and I was like their in-house director, and I was making everything from corporate videos to low budget ads, but I really wanted to make music videos, and that's when I, you know, started approaching guys. I made you know, one of my first videos was Little Things with Trinity Roots, which was like a chance meeting with Rio from that band in a cafe at Fidel's in Wellington.
Man, that's a good cafe, by the way.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Man, the best breakfast I ever had in my life was at Fidel's. I think it's a big breakfast. It's got a name for it, but holy moly.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Off the hook. Every time I go.
Yeah, so I just started I just wanted to come back and make short films and music videos and just build my career here. And in the midst of doing those music videos, I applied for funding for a short film, my first short film called Bus Stop, and I made that, and that did well on the festival circuit. So it's all just stepping stones to the next thing, you know.
Well, with the Trinity Roots video clip, I think it's one of the most fucking original, cool ass ideas. And I fucking love it, man. I always remember watching it thinking like, and I wasn't even really, because I was a hip hop head, so I was kind of like, yeah, this ain't really my jam. But like watching the video, and here's the video now, like watching it, like you know, like the visuals of the eyeball, and then how it all kind of zooms in one shot. Like, what made you think? Like, what was the thought process around this? Like, when you, because it's your first go, did you always have it up in the memory, or what was the whole process?
No, I mean, 90% of the time, for me, most of my concepts for videos are inspired by the song. So I hear the song and then an idea comes from that. Actually, Trinity was one of the rare ones where, you know, the Trinity bros are just, they're beautiful men, and they were literally like, oh, you know, let's talk about this. Like, come over for dinner, bro, and we'll talk it through. And so I went around to their place for dinner, and we were like literally riffing and brainstorming together, or brain dumping. And it was actually Ricky Gooch was the original drummer, and he was like, oh, you know, with this song, I just got this image in my mind of an old woman, like looking back at her life, you know? And I was like, oh, that's deep, bro. I was like, wow. Well, what if it got really emotional towards the end? But what if it was an old man instead of an old woman? It's like, what if it was an old Māori man, like sitting on the porch, looking back at his life and just thinking through what he had and what he did, and just retrospect, you know? And then Warren was like, oh, hang on, what if we could get Wee Cookie Car?
Oh.
And, you know, Wee is like one of the godfathers, if not the godfather of really early Māori acting or actors. And he lived in Newtown. And Warren was literally like, I know somebody that knows him, I'll get his number. And then he got his number and then gave me his number. He's like, okay, call him up and ask him. And I'm like,
Damn.
Yeah. And so, like, you know, just young filmmaker, I just cold called him and I was like, oh, excuse me. Yeah, my name's Chris Graham and I'm a young director. And, you know, you probably haven't heard of the band Trinity Roots because I hadn't even put anything out yet. And we've got this idea and I'd love to pitch it for you. And could I possibly meet you for a coffee and I can tell you about it? And he's like, all right, boy, meet me down at the Newtown pub and buy us a beer. I was like, thank you, Wee.
I know, bro, I know what that feels like.
Yeah, I bet. Because you cold call lots of your heroes, right?
Man, and some of them don't return my calls, but the ones that do, you know, they're real ones.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. But
I just graduated into one of the real ones.
Yeah, of course, bro. From the moment you hit me on that follow button, brother, I got you. But just a beautiful clip, like, and in 2001, I think this came out. 2000, you know, there wasn't a lot of. Like, it was kind of like once the Warriors are kind of like fizzling off, and like, I don't know, there was a bit of, not a negative connotation, but there was a connotation of Maoris and how they're perceived in the media, and this was just, it kind of like told everyone to shut the fuck up, you know, because it was a beautiful fucking thing.
Wow, that's really interesting. I've never had anybody describe it that way, but that means a lot. And I think it was just it was, you know, it just came together that way, really. I mean, I guess in part it's kind of my again that kind of maybe cultural respect or fascination that I had from my childhood, but in combination with the bros, you know, like Warren, Ricky, and Rio, they were just, you know, like we just literally got the community together. We made this video for $5,000 and we shot it in like half a day, you know, because all the extras didn't. It was a Saturday and nobody, you know, like there's actually, I mean, another time I can send you a behind the scenes of this. I've still got it on the web. I can fire it to you, but it's like, you know, we honestly, we made this in like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours of filming before it was dark. But yeah, it was a beautiful thing. I look back at it like it's, you know, one of my old good friends, you know?
Yeah, it is, at this bit where Koro gets a bit sad, you know, it's emotional because, you know, when you have like, you know, you always kind of have these memories, and you know, when either Nana or Papa is a bit sad by hearing some sad news, and you see this, what is this like? Did you just zoom in on his eye, or like, is this how it worked?
It's literally just a macro lens. So it is his eye. We just set it up as a separate shot. Then we shot it, and then that's when you know. And then we wanted to kind of reflect his memories as if they were in his eye, and kind of thought it could be cool to do that in color. You know, even though the video is black and white and timeless and stuff. But yeah, it was kind of, and I guess part of it was like, you know, it's, and then as Mokapuna jumps up and cuddles him and makes him feel happy again, it's all about family. And then there's a jump in time, like, hang on, he's thinking of his time and kind of, you know, like his childhood when everybody was dressed differently, and then suddenly it's modern day, you know. So that's kind of, it's just keeping it all open, including when the theory was his daughter comes up to him and whispers something in his ear, and you never hear, you know, you don't know what she says, but that's where his emotion changes. So it just leaves, it's, you know, like, it just leaves it open-ended for the viewer to have their own interpretation.
It's the Pulp Fiction, what's inside the suitcase kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which I think was from Hitchcock, but then same thing with even Seven. It's like, what's in the box in the desert?
We all knew what was in the box, man.
Yeah, and even J.J. Abrams is kind of referring to that. It is that thing. It's like classic storytelling. It's like that mystery and intrigue for the audience. It becomes interactive. You don't tell them what's there. You leave them thinking about it for themselves.
Man, that's the shit, yo. I can't wait to do this with stand up, brother. I cannot wait. That's one down. Oh man, bro, like, So that was your first kind of, you broke your teeth on that one. You cut your teeth on that one, I should say. And then did things just start rolling from there, or was it, you're still doing these, a couple of different things?
Like, I guess it did kind of feel like it was rolling because I did that, and then I went straight into doing a video for Rhombus, which was their song, what we called Dub Pie, but it was Clav Dub. And Trinity had a little cameo in that. But in the midst of doing that, I just got a phone call from Bic Runga, and she was like, "Hey, listen, I saw the Trinity Roots video and I thought it was beautiful, and would you please make my next music video?" And I went from doing $5,000 video for Trinity Roots to like a 30 grand video for Bic Runga, where I had this idea that she was kind of levitating through her singing, and so we ended up, like for me as a young filmmaker, it was like we shut down Cuba Street. We had a crane, like the camera on one crane, Bic Runga in a harness being craned up into the sky on the other one. Like just suddenly big toys and bigger money. I mean, 30 grand sounds kind of small, but for music video budgets, it suddenly meant we could shoot on 35 millimeter. This is all pre-digital, obviously, digital technology, and we were just going bigger, really.
This was Bic Runga at her highest too. Right?
Yeah,
this is like Sway Bic Runga.
Yeah. It was, the song was called Something Good, and it was great working with her, and then suddenly dealing with rather than the Trinity boys who were independent, it was like Bic Runga with a label. It was like Sony Music, so it was like, the A&R person and publicity, they all had opinions about what to do and how to present it. I mean, they were really trusting, and she was amazing, and she was great to work with, but it was, it was just that different level where there was a record label perspective on what we were making as a professional tool.
So those two are two completely different kind of things, right? The dichotomy of an independent versus a label.
Yeah.
Apart from money, creativity wise, did they just give you, just do your thing, or was it like you need it when it came to Bic? Was it like this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do, or was it completely up in the air?
No, I think it's actually like kind of one of the benefits and beauties of doing stuff in New Zealand. It is a little more number 8 wire, a bit more, maybe a bit more trusting or artistic. So it wasn't like there's only been a few times where either bands or artists have said, "Hey, I've got an idea for a video and I want you to make it for me," and it's like, well, actually, I don't want to make that, or even before I've heard the idea, like that takes the appeal away, because us filmmakers never really make money on music videos. I mean, unless it is like Bic, I made maybe $1 grand or $2 or something, and same with Day Hummo, like bigger budgets, you get paid a little, but generally you're doing it as a labor of love. So the creative experience and fulfillment is kind of the currency. Like that's kind of my pay, is like, oh, I got this idea, and then it's like I'm just passionate and excited to make it as to its greatest potential and ability within the limitations of whatever the budget is. So if an artist is kind of like, oh, I've got this idea, like I've had bands go, oh, we've got this idea, we've written it all out, we just want you to make it. It's like, well, I actually want to interpret your song and then make a vision for that, because that's what I pride myself on, is that it should be a really strong marriage between sound and vision. Like David Bowie said, it's like one should complement the other, and they should be kind of equal. There should be an equality and a respect there for each other.
Because I suppose like it's I mean, that's a hard balance when you think about it, because these people wrote the song, they know exactly what it is, and they probably have a vision, but you also have a vision as a creative, as a director, and it's finding, would it be safe to say like it's about finding that middle ground, or is there a push and pull of what's happening?
I think probably for some video makers and artists, but in my experience, I take the song, and sometimes, and it has happened with artists, like even with, like Capisi or whatever, where it's kind of like, oh, I've got an idea for the song. And I'll often say, okay, just don't tell me yet. Let me hear the song like straight, and then let me come up with my idea, and then let's meet. And then I'll pitch you mine, you tell me yours, tell me what you need, or if there's something important to your brand or whatever, like, and then go from there. But it's not, I mean, for me, I guess when I describe, taking away the creative element or experience of it, it's if they've written it out like a full storyline, like, oh, this is what I want to do, and this is whatever. Whereas, like, again, mentioning Capisi, I remember him coming up to me and being like, oh, Chris, I really love your recent videos. I'd love to do something with you. but I've always been the cool guy making like, cool hip hop videos, but I kind of want to do something more fun and playful and a bit more comedic. And before I'd even heard the song, I was like, oh, bro, I've got the idea for you. And he's like, really? You haven't heard the song? I was like, no, I've been saving this idea. And for years prior, I'd always had the idea of, and this is for his song, You Can't Resist Us with Shay Fu. And I'd always had the idea, it's like, well, what if I made a hip hop video on the farm? And I basically took Foot Trot Flats, but did it as a hip hop video and had no urban imagery. And it was just like, like combining two big elements of New Zealand culture. And so I had that idea. I was just waiting for the right song to pair it with. And when I pitched it to Bill, King Kapisi, he loved it. And so we went with that,
Yeah. And it is a genius idea, man. Like when you think about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody did anything like this,
In some ways, it's kind of, and it kind of goes for Smash Proof too, but it's kind of like, if to do a hip hop video, I'm like, okay, well, a lot of it's been done before, but how can I put a twist on it, or how can I refresh it, And that's where the farming idea came up.
Yeah, and then even like the little skit bits in the middle, and the little bits where Shay's talking, and just kind of being kooky and funny. Like there was nothing like that in New Zealand hip hop at that time.
Yeah. I guess that's a combination of like me not wanting to just be a music video director, but also a filmmaker and a storyteller and everything. So it was kind of like, okay, how can we take this idea and run with it?
Also, shout out, there's a little cameo there. I gotcha.
Yeah. That's me, and then next to me is my brother, and next to him is my cousin. So it's kind of like he's pulling in the extras, but. Yeah, back then in my 30s, I was always keen on just doing a cameo here or there.
And hey, recipes. We got Fatialofa and the Iceman.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Fats was awesome. He was great that day, and then we ended up like hanging out with him and him kind of, I was going to say partying, but more like hosting us when we did the video for Savage. We did Love the Islands, and Fats was over there. And we literally, the day after shooting, he just got us like 3 cases of Vailima, and we went down to this beach, like kind of private beach, and we just the whole crew, we just lay on the beach all day, drinking Vailima, in and out of the water, telling stories. We had the best time.
Yo.
Yeah.
At this time, there was no one like Shay and the bro Caps, like they were ruling the roost, man, at this time, I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Dawn Raid happened, and then we got some new fresh meat in there,
Yeah, and Dirty Records all around about the same time.
Yeah.
And I didn't know those guys. So, I mean, I ended up cold calling them, like, Dawn Raid, P Money, just calling up and introducing myself,
Right. This is awesome. Like, I am all about this. Again, this kind of talk. And then, like, speaking of some other ones, because you did, we did Little Things. The next one, you did like the Day Hamo. You just did We Gonna Ride, right? That was the only one you did? Or did you
I did that, and then I did his next single off the same album, which was called To the Floor. So it was like a nightclub track. So I did another video with Hamo as well.
What's it like working with Day Hamo? He's awesome, the man, eh?
I honestly, I look back at that video and I love that video for a lot of different reasons. But my personal experience, I've never laughed so hard as I did, like on that video. Like him and Chong Ni, like Neezy, John Chong Ni, just hilarious guys. We laughed and laughed. It was a 3-night shoot, and my jaw was hurting and my stomach from laughter. It was a great time. Oh. They're good guys. Sonny is still a friend to this day. Like, Hamo and I'll hang out, go to the movies every now and then. He's a brother.
Yeah, I got to get him on.
Yeah. I'll link you up. He's great. He's still making music. I don't know if he even wants me to say this or not, but he's been playing me his new music, and he's not. All I'm going to say is that he's not rapping, and the music is like moving. It's great. So he's beavering away in the cave, making beats in the cave.
Man, right. This music video was off the hook, man. It was crazy. I just want to get him on to ask him one question. If he is a whiz in the kitchen, I would be very interested to know. I'd be, are you a whiz in the kitchen, brother? Man, how much? What was the? If you don't mind me asking, what was the budget for this?
It was like oh god, if I'm remembering right, it was like 55 grand. And you've got me like this is my home office, but just since we're on this video, I just got to move the laptop and show you this. If you can see.
Yo.
So there's like a thinking chair, creative thinking chair, and this is like an old framed photo. It's a bit of a longer story. Look, it's like Inception. You can see the photo.
Yeah, I know.
But basically, I did a gallery show with Askew and the Disruptive crew. They had a gallery on K Road, and they were like, "Will you do a gallery show with us?" And I'm like, "Well, what am I going to present? I do moving images." And they were like, "Just pick a bunch of stills." So, anyways, that was one of the leftover photos. Like, I sold kind of 2/3 of them, and then I had a third left over that didn't sell, so they're hanging up in my house. I gave some away. Gave Severe one for his 40th. I just gifted them basically.
When I was younger, man, Jane Yee used to be my crush, man.
Oh,
there she is. There she is. Ooh. Yeah. She was intelligent. She was smart. She knew her way around music. I was like, that's my boo.
No, she's great. Jane's awesome. She's she's still local. I mean, she's a mum now, but I don't know what kind of work she's doing.
Hey, I've got to. Hey, I'm just putting it out there. You know what I'm saying? This is what I've been waiting for, Chris. This is what I've been waiting for. This is my all-time favorite song of all time. All right?
Yeah.
Is the stand-up clip. Like this clip, and I know where it is too, and it's in the underneath the Real Groovy, right? Because P told me. Bro, let's go through conceptually. What was the concept around this video for you? Was it your idea?
Actually, yeah, interesting. There I was kind of going, yeah, most of the time I kind of come up with the concept. But actually, to P Money's credit, he and not to generalize that most musicians don't have visual ideas, but Pete was like, he was like, listen, I'm thinking of like an underground gig. Like, how can we do something? And so this Night Vision opening sequence was his idea, and he had a reference for it. He's like, what if they were like sneaking to like an underground gig? And then we started talking about, okay, well, where could we do this? What could it be? And then we found that, we looked for locations, but the idea was that it was like hip hop was this underground society, and you kind of like, it was word of mouth that this gig was going on. Like it was like the old school warehouse parties, basically.
Yo.
So that was the premise of it. And then I knew we needed a lot of people, and in my experience and in my anxiety, I was always fearful that you wouldn't get the numbers that you need. And Scribe actually, like, as well as kind of going, oh yeah, we'll put the shout outs, because I think it was even like, there was Facebook, but it was more about the hip hop forums back then. It was like 2003, and the forums were big, and we're like, oh, we'll do call outs on that. But I still knew that like you'll end up getting, I don't know, maybe 50% of who you asked to come. But Scribe was opening for De La Soul at the St. James like that like 4 nights earlier, and I was at the gig. I was up in the balcony, and sure enough, Scribe, like at the end of his set, and the crowd was going nuts. Even though he at this stage, I think stand up, and I don't know if Not Many wasn't out yet, but the stand-up single was, but we hadn't done the video. Anyways, he basically on stage, he was just finished his set, and the crowd was going nuts, and he's like, hey everybody, if you want to be in my video, come to Real Groovy on Thursday night and you can be in the video. And I was just in the balcony going, oh my god, what has he done? Like, this is going to be a riot.
Fuck.
And to his credit, we got like probably 150 people, like, as it looks like. And of course, over the hours, like, we were giving them Red Bulls and waters and stuff to keep them there, but nobody was paid. So as it got into like, midnight, 1, 2 in the morning, people were just going home and but we basically shot the biggest group scenes frantically fast in those few hours, and with that energy to get everybody going nuts,
Fuck, man, this is crazy, eh? Yeah. Like, man, it cracks me up, eh? And every time I watch it, eh, there's always Tyner, man. Like, I always just crack up at Tyner. Because Tyner's in, like, pretty much, like, as many clips as he can get in there. He's just like, yo. And if you know Tyner, he's that kind of a guy. Like, he is the guy.
Yeah, he is the guy. And he's also, and that was, like, the era of Dubious Brothers. But a lot of people don't know. I mean, Tyner is, like, the meanest freestyle battle MC. Yeah. And and also, like D'Angelo, he can play every instrument. Like, the man is just, he's incredible. I haven't seen him for years, but I got such respect for him. And he's a good dude.
And any other funny, like, how did you manage like all the cameos? Were you just like, yo, he said this in the song, we need to get this dude in, or like,
yeah, I think between Scribe and P Money and myself, we just called up the people that were name checked in the video, and we amplified to them the importance of them being there for that particular shout out, and we got like 95% of them, including all the rock bands in the corridor, but there was a few Welly bands that couldn't make it up for the shoot, like Hummified, and Foot Soldiers is like represented with a T-shirt, but the guys from Foot Soldiers, who are again old friends of mine from Wellington, just couldn't make it. Yeah.
Oh man.
But everybody else is in there. It is. Yeah. It's a real. Now I look at it, it's like I feel like it's a blessed time capsule.
Yeah. You're actually right. Like it is when you think about it.
But maybe that's inevitable. 15 years later, you're going to look back and everybody, like, where were they at in their career? Like Taz is in there, Decons, there's Truce Lee, there's Chic. She was like a B-girl at the time, like Amy Romati, there's Taz, there's so many people in it,
And Chic, that's, you're going back with old Chic.
I know, and look, she kicks the mat box off the camera, watch. It's coming up. She does crazy legs here. Boom. She actually the mat box is like on the front of the lens, and you put the filters in it.
Yeah,
and she kicks it off. Yeah. I went
to school with her.
Oh, with Amy.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, way back.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, no, she's old school, but she was you probably remember, she was a B girl. I think she went to Germany a few times to rep the B girl, New Zealand B girl crew.
She does like some herbal like soaps and shit now.
Yeah, now she's into like Māori medicine and Wāroa, and she's exploring another whole journey for herself.
I shot my shot at her one time, I was like, Chic, what's up? And she didn't know. I was like, she was like a 7th former, and I was like a 5th former. And I shot the shot, right? And then someone told me that at the time she was going out with Mariko. And I was like, man, I know Mariko, man. I was like, and what? And what?
Yeah,
shit.
I got bars.
I can crack a 16 if need be. Shit. That was going way back. Out of the Guada days. Let's go.
Oh, funny. But yeah, it's another whole era, amazing.
Man, and then like, cause you did Dreaming as well, right?
Yeah, did Dreaming. Many? So Not Many as well. So basically the 3 videos from the Crusader.
Yo, and was Scribe was just like, nah, we're not doing anyone else, just you. Like that was your guy.
Yeah, yeah. So prior to stand up, when I said I cold called P Money, I basically approached him during Big Things. So Dirty Records was just set up. Big Things came out. I was a fan of Big Things, and they had done Scribe 2001 was like the first one that came out. And it was a little bit of I don't know if Pete remembers the conversation this way, but when I called him, I basically pitched him. I was like, hey, listen, I've come back from New York. Like, that was my line. I've come back from New York. I made a music video over there, which was true. It was like Frankie Cutlass was the perfect calling card to be like, I'm a Kiwi video director, and I've just made this video with Sadat X and blah, blah, blah. Like, it was kind of how I, met a lot of guys, including Severe and everything else. They're like, oh, I've heard about you, So that always helped. And I called Pete, and I was like, I don't know who made Scribe 2001 for you, but it's a pretty horrible video. I can do a whole lot better, like this hip hop cockiness. And he was like, I made that video. I was like,
bro, those ones I've been in that before. Like, man, that's shit. And then you're like, actually, I did that. You're like, oh, no, not that. No. I mean the other. Not that video. The other video.
Yeah, I mean, not that one. Scribe 2003. It hasn't happened yet. Yeah, no, that's anyways. But it was so that was our intro, and he was doing after that. The next video off Big Things was with Scribe. It was a song called Remember, and I basically said, he was like, oh, we're going to do this. And it was to Pete's credit. He was like, well, if you've got, pitch me the idea, and I know other guys that can make the video, but I'll read your idea and consider it, which is basically the same process as write a treatment and pitch it, and I'll evaluate it. And I wrote a very detailed treatment for Remember, catering to all the themes in there, including child abuse and all kinds of heavy themes that Scribe was talking about in that song. And put a lot of effort into it. And Pete's like, I love your treatment. Let's do this. And I was down in Welly, so I flew up to Auckland, and that was the first thing I've ever shot in Auckland. And I was like, worked with a cameraman, Nick Finlayson, that I'd never worked with before, and just worked with a crew. And Auckland was all kind of new to me. And I'm in Grayland Park, like making the video, and K Road and everywhere else, like making the
Oh.
video with those guys, and it was great. So we basically gelled on that. They were really happy with it. So from my memory, everything else, like Stand Up and Not Many and Dreaming, they were just like, hey, we got another song. Do you want to make the video? They didn't pitch it out to other people. They just wanted me to do it, which was great.
Bro, so this one, coming from Manurewa and having many times ventured through the Otara streets trying to get home after a good night, or just figuring out this, brother is the jam. Like, I just have to be honest, bro. I'm if there's anything, like, I love stand up. Like, stand up for me is like, fuck, that's the shit. But like, in the heartstrings, bro, when I watch brother, especially the bit where the dude goes and takes the tagger on.
Yeah.
That bit, man. Because that was around the time that that thing happened in Papakura.
Yeah.
So it was very fresh in everybody's minds. Was there anything in that you're like, bro, we have to kind of like bring the realness with this shit? Because, it's been fabricated, but nobody's kind of replicated it into a video clip like that.
Yeah. Basically, that was it. And it was important to me, both on a level of justice. If I'm remembering this right, like the kid that got stabbed, Pihama Cameron, they essentially, Bruce Emery, who stabbed him and claimed manslaughter, got home D. And if I'm remembering the timeline right, it had been announced in the paper that he got home D, and for a while the country was talking about it like it was kind of front page headlines and everything, because it was kind of like, okay, well, if it was a white kid getting stabbed by a brown neighbor, it would have been, the guy would, like Sid said in the recent documentary series, he would have got 10 years plus, So it just seemed, it was wrong on that level. And then on top of that, as a graffiti artist, I was just kind of like I've been chased for tagging, like I've had that experience. And it's just like, this isn't right. And so essentially, I think he got home D. The national dialogue about that had dropped down. Tyree wrote this verse, and that verse in particular, and was referencing that as a part of the portrait of South Auckland. And so I was just a huge advocate, I think, between myself and the band, but they were all for it, and the label with Kirk Harding and MTC and Aaron Christie. It was just kind of like, we've got to draw attention to this. And I was like, let's recreate it. And we did. And then when we made the video, like, it was actually, I think within a day or two, the image of him tagging the fence from the video was front page on the New Zealand Herald. Like, it was kind of controversial when the video came out.
And but the cool thing was, I don't want to say cool thing, but the thing was about it is it started a conversation. Because at that time, I was like, well, this is what happened, move on. And it was getting moved on. Like, there was really very little conversation going on, especially in mainstream media. In the hood, bro, everybody was like, damn, bro, like, old boy got stabbed for, like, just tagging up. That's some fucked up shit.
Yeah.
The same thing, and coming back to it was when, like, there's other things that have gone on that kind of get swept under the rug, but it was like this was kind of like, hey, hold up. There's some injustice that's gone on.
Yeah.
Why are we not talking about this?
Yeah. Exactly, and the same thing, and also the whole metaphor of South Auckland as the brother, which is why we did the kind of funeral scene at the end. But yeah, this scene here, it was kind of like, okay, let's recreate it, and we got this actor, and even in again, there's a behind the scenes of this, and it's like you see this whole dramatic scene unfold, and the teenager, like the actors, like fighting him off and everything, but then. In the outtakes, they're kind of like laughing afterwards and hamming it up. Oh yeah, there's the science tag.
I was about to say, is this the most famous you've ever been in terms of tagging, bro?
Yeah, probably. I guess it's the way. It's like it's like the audio tag for producers or DJs on songs. It's kind of like another one.
You just have science everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, little did I know, and the boys didn't either at the time. It's like they didn't know it was going to be the longest running #1 New Zealand song of all time, and I didn't know it was going to be the video that was going to get such high rotation. And nobody probably knew that. They probably thought they were. Jin was a really unusual singer, but just at the alchemy of everything all together just cut through, and it was just the right song, the right message, the right video at the right time,
Yeah.
for the I guess the appetite of the nation. I mean, in some ways, I feel like I'm kind of like I've recently just done this, with this hip hop documentary series, and I feel like some of the things I'm saying, I'm even repeating what the guys, Sid and Deech and Tyree said in the documentary. It's like a little 10-minute portrait, but they were breaking down the song, how it was written, why they wrote it, and how much it means to them now in retrospect, like 10 plus years later.
It is a very from somebody from coming from out south. It's you see these things all the time.
Yeah.
Like, and for the European people from out in the central areas that have never kind of seen this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
bro, you'd see it every Saturday morning. You see a kid like that one, for instance. This one right there. Bro, that was me. Like that was me a couple of times, and that was my mum giving me a hiding. It's that was my mate and his dad. Yeah. So, it's always something that's it's really quite a what was the thought process around the invisible car type buzz?
Well, it was basically kind of putting a twist on it. So I guess for me the process was, okay, they're talking about a place. They talk about South Auckland. We need to do a portrait of the place. Them being in a car makes sense as a vehicle, like literally and metaphorically, to be able to look around and show a lot of the community through them just driving around. So essentially it was kind of like, okay, well, we can do the hip hop car video, like we can do that. And then, but then a bit like I was saying earlier, it's like, well, how do you put a twist on that? And then I was like, well, what if you couldn't see the car? What if they were like, what if it was invisible? Then what, does that provoke the audience to think, what does this mean? Does it mean that they're having a very transparent and naked view of what South Auckland as a place has become? And does it mean that South Auckland can look at them and what they're saying with transparency and vice versa, and then leading to the end of the video here where it was like, well, and then South Auckland but essentially is the metaphor, like the old South Auckland is in the coffin and about to be buried. That era is over. As nothing will be the same again, and there's a new South Auckland, But
this was a very, I suppose, the maturation process for Sid as well, because he was doing a lot of hood stuff, like Hood Like Me. He was doing all these things, and then he comes out with not just this. There's a couple of other tracks that he's like, wow, Sid, this is great, Yeah. And it shows it really showed his maturity, not just as a entertainer and as a person in the public eye, but also as a lyricist. There was different levels to it, and he wasn't just going in like, I was proud to say, like, bro, this guy's really kind of bought it now,
Yeah, no, I mean, Sid's an amazing MC and lyricist, and he's done a ton of songs like that. But yeah, he was really caught up in this. I mean, even in the little documentary thing, again, I'm kind of quoting that, but I didn't even know this when I was interviewing in that, and he was like, oh yeah, I took Brother the song out to, my bros in Otar, and I played it to them, and they were all like, this song sucks.
Yeah. I bet.
And it's like, yeah, #1 hit, but who knew, and everybody's taste is different, but that's just, maybe you're supposed to say it sucks.
Oh, well, especially when you're from Otara and all, like when you've been listening to Tech Nine and all these other like hearty, we're from Otara kind of tracks.
Yeah.
For the bro to bring something different and to be like, this is what we're doing now is great testament to him and his ear for music,
Yeah.
Yeah, bro. All right, let's move on to Sioni's wedding, my bro. Okay. That would have been a cool time in your life, man.
Oh, amazing.
Because was that your first, that's your first feature film, right?
Yeah, my first feature film that I didn't see coming. It just got handed to me, like on a Samoan platter. I just felt so honored and blessed, Like, honestly, it wasn't, a lot of filmmakers, it's like they have their dream project and then they try to get funding and it's like years of trying and it's like hard work. And in this instance, this was a project that had been developed with the Naked Samoan Boys as a creative troupe, or they were a theatre troupe, obviously. And but they had the screenplay, and South Pacific Pictures had been trying to, I think, get it funded for years, and it just kept getting turned down for funding. So at the time that they came to me, it was like greenlit, funded, and they were literally like, "You're the guy to make this." And they told me that in a meeting, like they invited me in to talk about it, and I hadn't read the screenplay, and they slid the screenplay across the table, and they were like, "We believe you're the right guy to make this." And I was like, "Shouldn't you get a Samoan director? You know, like I'm very flattered, but shouldn't you get a Samoan? Because I'm just European mix." And they were like, "No, you understand the culture." And I mean, I'd been to the islands. I'd made Suamale for Feel Style on the islands. I'd done a couple of trips there, a few music videos, and obviously a catalog of hip hop stuff. So between visual aesthetic and sensibility, and they were also like, listen, it's not culturally specific. Like this is a universal story. It's basically four guys. It's the nerdy guy, the party guy, the Casanova, and the drunk, or the hopeless one, or whatever. And this is universal. It's like it could translate. I mean, and actually, I think that there were times where they were shopping the template of the movie around overseas. It could be, like you could make it in Italy, you could make it wherever. It does translate. But yeah, anyways, it just felt like an honor, and so I read the screenplay and loved it, and had a bunch of ideas to add to it. But and I just had, while I was nervous about comedy, because in filmmaking world, and a lot of mentors said to me, they were like, "You do know comedy is the hardest thing to do, right?" It was like put the fear into me. So while I was intimidated, I was also just kind of like, well, it's the Naked Samoans. They're hilarious. They've got chemistry on screen. I'll just bring my sense of humor. We'll do a lot of improv, and we'll make it slick, and we'll make it cinematic, and we'll do justice to, like Auckland and Grey Lynn as a place and a sense of place, and just make it a emotive rom-com for the Usos, basically.
Yeah, and it was great. Like at that time when it came out, everyone was like, "Wow, this is like different." And like I said, like there was only, like if we go back in multi-Pacific like film, there's very few that didn't involve, especially were like of comedies for one, and then comedies that worked was the other thing. But I mean, like with Brotown coming out and then this pop in, it would have been a great time. Like what an awesome kind of amalgamation of things to happen for the Bros there.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, like when I talk about how they had the project for a few years and they were trying to get funding and not getting funding, I actually think it was Brotown that greenlit it. Wow. Kind of unintentionally. Like it took Brotown's ratings, I think, to prove to the Film Commission that it wasn't only for a Samoan audience. So non-Samoan audience found that their humor hilarious, and that's what kind of permitted them to put the money into Sionis and make it. Even though it was a low budget, it was like a $3 million movie, which is kind of low or fairly standard for New Zealand features. It was Brotown that made it happen.
Is that still a thing? Like in terms of representation of like New Zealand film, is there still a bit of a struggle to, go away from that? Oh well, only because I mean there was Baron Tour that just came out, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, but like, is that still like, is there more of like a an acceptance, I suppose, nowadays?
Yeah, it's still well, I guess first of all with the digital kind of revolution that's happened both in the music and film industry, or a lot of the arts industries really, it means that you can basically make stuff for cheaper. Like you can make independent films digitally, and now there's a whole bunch of, same way there's bedroom producers making beats and songs, and you've got your lords and everybody just making stuff at home. Billie Eilish and everything else get discovered, but it's kind of like it's really the same for film. So you can make it for less, but it's still a really hard process if you're to get and secure the funding to make the projects that you want to make. I mean, essentially, I've made 3 feature films now, but I mean, I've for all of those, I've in the last 10 years since Sionis, because often people are like, "Oh, how come you haven't made anything else?" It's like they don't understand just how hard it is to secure millions of dollars and for everything. Like as soon as one funder pulls out, it's like a house of cards that just collapse. So I've been attached to probably 5 or 6 different feature films that I've had alive in my head that I'm so excited to make, and they just never quite got the funding and never eventuated.
Yeah. What do you ever see something? You don't have to say any names, but do you ever see something like that got greenlit? You're like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah, of course.
What the fuck, man? My idea was way better than that idea.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, and that happens I mean, that probably happens in a lot of industries. But it's like you may have that, yeah. I mean, you may have that perspective, or possibly even go, I could have done a better job than that person, or I should have gotten funded, or whatever. But then that's all just, then we're getting into the semantics of mental health. And do you really want to go around carrying that chip on your shoulder or being bitter, or do you want to just kind of go, well, it wasn't for me. I'm going to move on, and I'm going to make my own shit happen.
Start building instead of busting down. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Bro, Stanley stole the show on that whole movie, bro. Bro, he was. Yo, did you expect that to happen?
What's that?
Stanley on
Sionis, yeah. Heto's character.
Heto, yeah. Bro, he stole the show, man.
Yeah, he's awesome, eh? Heto's amazing. He's so talented.
Well, I think like out of and Oscar, all those boys are awesome, but it was just like, oh man, this guy is the funniest dude on the whole thing, you know.
But so you mean in terms of performance, not just like his character, but like his performance,
his delivery on everything. Just
Ooh. Yeah, no, he's really funny, and he's very dry, and he's got a great sense of comedy. You also love the breaking scenes in the Irish pubs, right? You like the dichotomy of that?
Yeah, I do. Hey, so in the hood, man, sometimes when you get a bit upset and just punch a couple of fence posters, you get a bit pissed off, you cut back a couple of boxes of Cody's and go out and you start punching the fence posts. How many fence posts did you break when you found out that somebody leaked that fucking movie, man? I would have been out. I would have been Mike Tyson, this motherfucker. I would have been David Tua out on these fence posts.
Oh my god. Well, it's funny. It was actually like when I found out about it, it was pretty shocking, and also because I actually then later, like weeks and weeks later, but found out who it was that leaked it, and it was back in the days. So for those that don't know, basically somebody got hold of the DVD from the inside, like from the post-production house, and then they took that DVD out south, probably quite innocently, and basically just went, "Hey, I got this new movie," and it was like that excitement and anticipation of like, I've got this amazing, Samoan comedy, or like they loved it and they wanted to share it, and I get that. But then the fact that you then lend it or let your neighbor see it or your friend see it, and then they dub a copy and it turns into pirate kind of wildfire.
Bro, it was worse. It was worse than coronavirus, brother.
Yeah.
That thing was everywhere.
I was worried about it at the time, but it was actually like, in retrospect, it was kind of like it was a blessing in disguise. Okay. Like it actually, because the anticipation of it, like Sionis actually broke records for the biggest opening weekend of a New Zealand movie ever. And I honestly, in my my speculation, I don't think that would have happened without the anticipation and the word on the street from the community, whether they saw it on DVD and then they were telling their friends about it. So it was almost like a sense of discovery and ownership. And then they still were going to go to the movie theater and pay the ticket and do the box office and get it, and and watch it again. And just I think the buzz in the South Auckland community, if not Greater Auckland, and in the Samoan and Pacific Island community for the film, the anticipation was amplified, and then the opening weekend just exploded. So I don't think that or its success would have happened without that leak. That's the way I see it now.
Because there was I was reading a thing, and they said like $500,000 they lost,
Yeah, that's right. But how do you measure what we gained?
That's true.
Like, I don't know. I remember reading a thing about it was some article by a LA producer, and it was essentially a written article about what I learned about distribution from Pamela and Tommy Lee and South Park. And it was basically saying, this is back in the days, again, it was like dubbing and the ability to do that. But the story goes that the whole thing of the guys from South Park was that a producer went to them, knew them as young animators that were doing stuff on Flash, and he was like, hey, listen, I got this idea. I want you guys to make an animated little short film, like 3 minutes, and it's like a Christmas card that I'm going to give all the other producers in town or all of my clients and contacts, and I want it to be like a rabbi fighting with Jesus, talking about Christmas or something or other. I don't know the whole deal. But basically, they made this short animation, and it essentially went viral before the internet. But the way that things would go viral was people would have a copy on VHS, they would dub it, give it to their friend, dub another copy, give it to their friend. So that was like kind of unofficial and kind of planned distribution. And the same goes for like, Pamela and Tommy Lee's sex tape. It's kind of like they became famous because of that, or more so famous. But it was like, you just look at how you can't control that wildfire spread when somebody wants a copy of something. And I think it's essentially the same thing. And I do think that's kind of, while it wasn't planned, it's like, I think it did end up benefiting Sionis in the long run,
Yeah.
And it's also kind of hood, it's kind of sweet mixtapes. It's like bootleg tapes of the 90s. It's like,
it's very hood.
Yeah.
Like for me, I was like, yo, it was going around my school like wildfire.
Right.
It was like, yo, who's got it, man?
Right.
I got it. And, because at
so
the
you
time,
saw it on DVD before the movies?
No, I did not. Okay? I did not. I'm telling you, I promise you, on everything I own, I saw it and I said, you know what? I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait till and I'm gonna contribute my money towards these young creatives. Okay, I refuse to see this.
Nice, very honorable.
Yeah, nah, that didn't happen, brother. I'm sorry. I watched that shit like 5 times in a row, my G. I didn't sell it though. I didn't sell it.
Yeah,
I borrowed it out.
All that, Tim. Now I know the name.
Out of James Cook High School, bruv. I was not the distributor. Out of JC, I was just just chilling.
Oh, funny. Shit. Yeah, no, because that copy, like, it actually had unlicensed music on it. Like, some of the songs that were on that DVD that went around they hadn't been, like, approved but, like, it was just me trying, like, oh, let's try that Nesia Mystic song there. Oh, let's do the Aradna song. And, we'll use the Savage song. But it was, like, trying it underneath until we could actually lock down the licensing with the record labels and everything else. So technically it had, illegal songs on it. So you saw that copy.
That's kind of special. That was the copy.
Yeah.
All right, dude. We're gonna get through some of these viewer questions.
Yeah.
And let me just get these up. Let's get the viewer questions up and ready to roll, and then that'll be us. This is from the mighty Unga. He asks, "Have you ever?" There you go. Bing. There you go. Have you ever tried Unga?
I have never tried Unga. That's not the blue crab from Niue, is it?
Yep, that's the one.
No. And I was talking about crabs. I've always, Niue is one of the few Pacific Islands I haven't gotten to yet. I've fortunately been to most, but I've seen photos of the Unga crab. I have not tried it. I would love to.
Same. My kids are half Niuean.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I'm not a beach guy, man.
Right.
I know, it's weird. I just don't get down. And then the missus is like, yo, let's go. And I'm like, nah. Can't we just go to LA? Like, can't we just go to, like Tokyo or something like that?
Can't we just try that new bakery?
Yo, hey man, the crab over in Japan is next level too, bro.
Have you been to Japan?
Yeah. I went November last year.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, no, I'd love to. Japan's on my wish list. I mean, I've been to some of Asia, and some of the best crab I've had was actually in Thailand. And like I said, I was lucky to be there as a kid, so that was an influence. But yeah. Haven't done Japan yet.
Next one. Who's got the better discography, Biggie or Pac? In your mind?
Ooh, we're going east-west. I both incredible lyricists, both in the top 10, top 5. We'll get into arguments. Top 10. But like you, Tim, I'm like I'm East Coast, really East Coast for life. So Biggie all the way for me. Yeah, and what him and Puff Daddy did was just incredible. Like the combination of the two of them. But what a lyricist! You've seen that thing when he's like 16 years old and skinny outside the bodega, battling that kid in the street, phenomenal, like talented from so young.
Question from the Unga: do you know Sugar Pop from Newton?
Yeah, not well, but I've met him, and he was a body like a popper and locker, like early b-boy, like mid 80s, early 80s even. But yeah. So that welly scene, like even Curb's older brother, Swerve. It's like they were all popping and locking back then. So that's first generation of b-boys in Wellington.
I know that Spell, DJ Spell's in the chat right now.
Oh, Spell's the man.
Man.
Shut up, bro.
He's
God, I'm usually watching his videos right now. I feel honoured.
Oh, shit.
Hey, great. Let's get that Spell. Let's get that TV show going now.
Hey.
Oh, my G.
Jerry Milk says, the best Q-Tip song. What's your best Q-Tip song?
Wow, good question. Being a Tribe fan. The first thing that popped into my mind just then was Breathe and Stop.
Yo.
You know, and his album The Renaissance is amazing, like his solo album. But I mean, if I was picking a Q-Tip song from a Tribe album, that would be tough. Take my time. But yeah, Breathe and Stop is phenomenal.
This one's from Tamagotchi. Have you got any stories from Brownsville? Rip Sean P.
No, I don't have any stories from Brownsville. Brownsville. Actually, God, it's showing my age. Takes me back. There's a sample at the beginning of Buffalo Girls, where it's like on vinyl, which I've got, and it's like it's saying Brownsville repeatedly. But no, I haven't. I've been around a lot of Brooklyn, and I've had a couple of scary times and close calls. Red Hook and other areas, which have now changed. But back in the 90s, where it was like I fell asleep on the subway and got off on the wrong stop and didn't know where I was, and suddenly I'm like the only white guy at nighttime walking the streets trying to find home. But not Brownsville. No.
This is a question from Spell. What happened to the Usual Suspects video?
Oh, good question. Somebody else is doing their research.
This is Spell.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's Usual Suspects. So that song. Oh my God, it's on the tip of my tongue. And I used it in Sione's wedding. I actually got it on the Sione's. It's in the film. Oh God, I'm just having a mind blank on the title of the song. But anyways, the Usual Suspects, they were with Breaking Records at the time, and they're one of the few bands, along with Homebrew, but that I mean, I have talked about cold calling, but I approached them and I was just like, I love this song. I want to make a video for the song. And I basically, long story short, Spell, we didn't get funding, and even then we were in talks about like, well, could we make it on the cheap, or how could we make it without funding, which is exactly what happened with the Homebrew video as well. But with that, they had a following, and we did raise the money to actually get it. But with Usual Suspects, it never quite happened. But yeah, I was a big fan of them early days, and Riz Vans continued on to do amazing music, obviously with Spell. But yeah, that's oh my God, what's it? It's on the tip of my tongue what it's called. Spell. Type out what the title of that song is. Yep. They use so many samples in it. I don't know if you've heard it before, Tim, but you'd have to hear the title. But it's a favorite. It was like nothing else I was hearing out of New Zealand hip hop.
It's called Profile.
Profile. Thank you. Yes, it's great. It's like early. It's almost like what the drill music scene's doing in Aussie now. It was like Mexican, almost like mariachi kind of music underneath
drill
it.
Stuff.
That was like 18 years ago.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
This one's from the deputy mayor. He says, did Wikuki Ka share anything interesting about Utu? How did I miss that name?
Another good question. Yeah, so he was one of the leads in Utu, which was, I think, 1987 Jeff Murphy film Māori Western, like, you know, one of my favorite films, that hugely inspiring. I'm positive I asked him about it, and I'm just trying to think if he had any particular anecdote. I think he just said it was just a really hard shoot and it was really hard work, because they were like deep in the bush and they made that movie, even though it doesn't look like it, they did make that movie out of not much. Like I think it was a few $100,000, which back then was not a lot when you're doing a period piece with wardrobe and horses and houses, and production design has to look like that period. But I don't remember him telling me one story that stood out. No.
I remember I was in English class and they made us watch that, and my English teacher had never watched it before, and she was this old lady, bro. She would have been like in her 60s. Eh? Yeah. And then you remember the first bit when they're in the church and he just like cuts her head off?
Yeah.
Bro, the look on this lady's face. She just got out, like she was sitting at the back of the class and it was in the front. She got up. This is the fastest I've ever seen anyone in that age run. She just got up, whoop, and fucking turned it off, eh? And I was like, no, miss, play it. Fucking play it, man. Let's go. And then she was like, nope.
It's accurate factual history. Play it.
I was like, hey, don't drop nuts now. Hey, you don't want to do no teaching and watch a fucking video? How about you? Yo, put some bets on yourself there, lady. Shit. Yeah.
Looks like she didn't do her research before pushing.
Bro, she didn't. And that's why I was like, no. Let's go. Next one from Fiasco. She says, dream artist to make a video for in New Zealand or internationally.
Wow. Tough questions. Good question. One of the first people that came to mind internationally would be Anderson .Paak.
Oh.
Like I'm a massive Paak fan. And even the recent lockdown video, and some of his videos are hit and miss, but musically, I'm a big fan of him. I'm hoping he'll do something as strong as Malibu. Like I do like his recent albums, but Anderson .Paak would be international. Local. Oh.
What about Swit It?
Talks with, what's that?
What about Swit It?
Swit It, yeah, I'm a Swit It fan, and they do great videos. Connor Pritchard that makes that Who Are You video that he's done recently is really strong.
Which leads on to our next question, actually.
Well, I was just going to say that it's probably and only because I've been kind of holding my breath for this for a while. But even though I've worked with him, but I've been in talks for a while with Scribe about doing his comeback video.
Let's go.
I've known him for 20 years. I made 6 videos for him, and and we actually just to share it with you because it hasn't been announced really properly yet. But since the hip hop documentary series I've done, but we've just gotten funding for a long form video about Scribe's whole story. So I'm doing like a 8-part, 80 minutes worth of Scribe's whole experience and rise and fall, and everything he's been through. And it's an incredible mental health story, and he's ready to tell it. And it's probably called The Return of the Crusader, and it is about his next album. And I've been a bit like King Kapisi. I've got an idea that I've been saving for years, and I haven't heard which song he's picked yet, but I'm really hoping my idea can apply to his comeback video because for the two of us to do it together, it'll have to be big,
The next one is whose work from the modern day are you impressed with? You got Jordan. I think it was Daniels was on there. Anyone from the music videos right now? You're like, yo, I like what they're doing.
Well, Dave Meyers does incredible work. I mean, this is internationally. He's American director who did a lot of Missy Elliott's early videos, and then did a lot of Kendrick's videos. So he did Humble, and he recently did the Lockdown video with Anderson .Paak, which I think is really, really quite beautifully understated. And just really interesting stuff in that video, like just 3/4 camera angles on them rapping to each other. I think it's Sid from The Internet, and is it J-Rock who does a verse on it, or who is it that's on there with him? Anyways, but rapping to each other, I just think it's beautifully shot and just nicely understated. Yeah, Dave Meyers.
So, next one. Thoughts on Scooper hot chocolate? I don't know, man. I don't know. We get these.
I heard scoop and I thought ice cream, and then I heard hot chocolate, and I got a bit lost.
Yeah. We get these.
I haven't had that hot chocolate. Although I make hot chocolates on the regular for my kids, and I'm pretty good at it. But I haven't had that one.
Every once in a while, I got to throw these kind of things in there to keep the people happy, Chris. Because if I don't throw that in there, I'll hear about it.
Yeah.
When you ask me a question, and then I'm like, hey, relax. Okay. John99 says, what recent movie have you watched and you thought you could make it better?
Shit. Probably the appropriate word. I'm trying to think. What have I seen that I saw a movie I was really impressed with recently, which is The True History of the Kelly Gang, which is an Australian film about Ned Kelly. It was the opening night at the New Zealand Film Festival just a couple of weeks ago. And that film blew me away, but I would not be so bold to say I could have done better, but it lit a little fire under me, like when I talk about trying to find that inspiration in my 40s, like that movie got me really excited. What movie could have done better? You know what? I'm gonna put it out there and say, I was a co-director of Born to Dance. But I just have to admit that, I directed all the dance scenes for Born to Dance, but underneath it all, I really wanted to direct the whole movie. And mad respect to Tammy Davis, who directed it, and he's a friend, and we did a great job together. But I don't know, the hip hop battle person in me is like, I would have killed that movie, and I've still got a slight bitter taste in my mouth that I didn't get to do it. But that's just life,
Somebody that's on that movie that I did not know is River Jordan.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, isn't that Jordan from My FM in there?
Yeah.
And it is. Man, what crazy
he was great in that film. I remember taking him aside at the rap party, and putting my hand on his shoulder and be like, bro, that was a really strong performance. Like, he plays the bad guy in that film essentially, and he just plays it with subtlety and restraint. It's a great performance.
Yeah.
He's a pretty multi-talented dude, that one.
He's pretty good at sidestepping too, because he sidesteps every one of my DMs to come on the show. I'm pretty sure he's half Fijian. I'm pretty sure he's got some Fijian in him. He should be playing sevens.
He's got the Rococo sidestep.
He does, man. He does. He does. Clendon's finest, Joe Rococo, by the way.
Oh, really?
That's my G right there.
Wow.
And last question we've got from Puma Pants. He says, do you think that Tom Scott is criminally underrated as an influential part of New Zealand hip-hop?
The short answer is yes, he is. And we were talking about this right before we went to air, right? We were talking about Homebrew and Tom Scott. We were talking about rating him. I mean, he is an incredible lyricist, you know? I think he's a complicated, tortured man, but he's brilliant at the same time, and that's where his storytelling comes from. But yeah, lyrically, incredible.
He's the man. He's one of my, and I said that he's on my. It's funny, man. Like I've got my Rushmore, all right, and you're connected with a lot of these Rushmore peoples, man.
Oh, true. Yeah, that's right. Actually, some of the guys that you said when I asked you.
Yeah, I didn't even know that until now.
Yeah, true.
So hey, you gotta take the torch, brother.
Okay. Yeah.
Sing my praises, brother, please. Oh, Chris, man, thank you. And we didn't even get to the RNZ stuff because we've run out of time. But we got to get you back, man. Are you keen to come back on?
Yeah, no, I'd happily come back on. But I mean, on a level, I mean, if you're interested in some of the videos I've mentioned and New Zealand hip hop in general, just to plug it. But about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we dropped a 7-part hip hop documentary series, which is looking at some of the songs. Oh no, actually, I was gonna. You know what? I got a question for you, Tim. But I'll just finish what I'm saying. It just reminded me. But it's essentially 30 years of hip hop, starting with Up Up Posse, Air 2, going right through what I call the old school, the mid school, and the new school. So Smash Proof, Scribe, Sisters Underground, Sheila Rock, King Kapisi, and then we lead up to Church and AP with Ready or Not. Anyways, the series is there. You just basically Google RNZ hip hop documentaries, and it'll come up, and you can watch them in any order, binge them, whatever you want. But it's been doing so well that we haven't got it, but we're going to apply for a second series. And so my question to you, Tim, is can you name 1 or 2 or 3 of the next must tell the story of that New Zealand hip hop song in the last 30 years?
Okay. Oh, man, that's tough, man. Oh, you got to get some Shay in there. Yeah.
Which song?
Oh, man, like, without a doubt. You got to go back to Te Waka. Got to get that one. Oh, man, that's just tough, man.
And it's a funny one with people like Shay and Lady who rap and sing.
Yeah.
But, like, if it was hip-hop classically, like, I love Waka. I'm a huge Shay fan. But, if he's not rapping in it, is it...
With Chains was on. Here's one that might be a little thing. You remember? Oh man, I can't remember who it was. 3 the Hard Way. You don't like hip hop? Oh no, bro, that was off the chains. Shit, man. Yeah. Oh, you put me on the spot here.
Yeah, man.
Oh man.
And what about? Okay, here. Let me hone in on it because the last one when we're trying to go through to the new school, and like I said, Church and AP, Ready or Not. If you had to name one song in the last year or two, what's a standout Taonga hip-hop song in the last couple of years?
I think Swit It Bunga would be the one.
Yeah.
That is some strong shit right there.
It is.
Or anything from Swit It. You know what, man? What I would really like, and I know one of my favorite EPs of all time is Homebrew Last Week because it's just a whole week, right? Yeah. And that would be really interesting. But yeah, I think Behold My Cool Style would be like that if we're going back those ways.
Yep, great mention.
Any Mellow Downs would be pretty cool.
Yeah, which Mellow song?
Yeah, man, I can't remember. What's the No Mercy is my favorite, yo.
Oh yeah, it's a great song.
I know. But man, what else is there? There's plenty, man. But yeah, bro. Oh, that's interesting, man.
So you can sidestep my DMs and go, here's 10 songs. Give me what you think.
Oh, bro, I would love to do that. Hey, and if you need anyone just to hold the boom or just get people water. Anything like that, I come for free, bro. You don't need to pay me. G.
Really?
I just want to be there. You know what I'm saying?
As long as there's pies in the catering, you'll show up?
No, I'll bring the pies from Clendon, mate. I'll bring the good pies.
That's us.
That's us, brother. Fucking hell. Anyway, bro, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Hang around, though. We'll have a little chat off stream, and then that's us. So thank you, man. Hey, chat, everybody in the chat, let's get some booms up. Let's get some claps. And and then that's us. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for everybody listening in. It's been fun. Man, memory lane. It's been fun. It's a photo album.
Yeah, bro, we did it, man. And we didn't even. This is what pisses me off. We didn't even get to the RNZ stuff. But we're gonna get you back on, and we're gonna talk solely about the RNZ stuff.
Okay, happy to.
Because I want to know more of that.
Yeah. Oh, they're amazing. Like, I didn't even realize the stories behind the songs. They just all unfolded like it was a treasure chest for me, you know?
It was on my list to talk about things, but we just got lost, bruv. We went down the rabbit hole, bruv.
Rabbit holes.
All right, man. Hang around and we'll talk later, eh?
Will do. Thank you, brother.
Cheers, brother. Ooh, let's go, baby.
That was fun. Thanks a lot.
Oh, gee. Oh, I just got to wrap this up, my bro. And then that'll be us. Hold up.